you know, a values-based leadership right now is, and I shouldn't say right now, but that it's named right now, is everything to me. And I think it's really the only thing that makes difficult decisions clear. When I think about the decision that we had to make as the Canadian Paralympic Committee Board of Directors to not send a team to Tokyo for the Paralympic Games ahead of those games being postponed, how do you make a decision like that that has incredible impact? And how do you make those decisions? Well, you have to make them based on your values, and we looked at, athlete-centered, athlete-first decision making. We looked at the whole person. These aren't just athletes, these are whole people, and their health and safety, both from a physical perspective and from a mental health perspective, has to be foremost always. Second, not secondarily, but in addition to that, the safety of our coaches, the safety of all of the people that support the system. And so when you look at values-based leadership, for me, it's been the only thing that's the only clear voice inside of me, because I tend to overanalyze everything.
The feedback I get sometimes on our website or at our events is, how did you get these voices and these women? Like, they are women who are leading authentic lives, and people who are, they'll say, they're just like me. I dealt with that thing as a mom in sport, or I dealt with that. And that's always sort of the model, I guess, or the guiding light that I'm trying to follow. Like, who are these people who are living authentic lives, who had trials, who've had challenges? So that kind of human approach for me, and you talked about athletes first, human-based approach. I've had to say no to some people that have reached out to me who wanted to collaborate, because when they told me what their goals were or values were for working together, it was either something about increasing sales, or it just wasn't focused on the right reasons. And I definitely can feel that in my gut when I'm talking to someone. And it's hard to say no or decline. But every time I either put an event together or I'm looking for speakers, it has to be the right voices.
I think that all comes back to, sort of what matters to you, and how you, what's important to your life and what you want to accomplish when you're here. We all have goals. We all have things we want to do. And, making a difference is important to me. And whether that means in the disabled community or the sport community, and using my voice. And I certainly, after my injury, I've realized the difference my voice can make when I use it. And, speaking out and valuing that my authenticity and my integrity and my values are things that I identify with every day, right? And, they help me make the right decisions, I hope.
How do we set it up that we can be aware of the assumptions or expectations, wearing the mantle of leadership, because we'd like to pretend and show up, and our view of readiness or knowing. And you know what? I think many of them are some overinflated false constructs. So how can you surrender? How can you show up a little differently and authentically, and either model and or support others if they're quiet? Hey, notice you haven't said anything for a couple hours here. Everything okay? Yeah. Let's take a break. Let's reconnect. There are a whole bunch of different ways to do it, to make sure meeting people where they're at, but at least taking the time and space to identify.
Moment where you're like working on someone, or you're trying to connect with something, or something happens and it's like, ugh, it's like that icky or like that jerky kind of like, this does not feel right. This does not feel good. And a lot of the time it's because your values are just like your values are not aligned. So it is like in all the places and spaces that we're in, there's always going to be that uncomfortable rub or moment. And so it is trying to figure out like the strategies to navigate that. But it's interesting that we're talking about belonging, because belonging was is one of my values. It's newer for me, which is really cool. And then another one that has come up for me that are newer, kindness and authenticity. So in terms of values, I think that's where, and sometimes it's hard to be real, right? To say what you really want to say, you got to find the right words. Sometimes you just got to say it. And so it's kind of this balance of always being respectful and always being kind. But something that was taught to me, both by a former leader I used to work with, and I could hear my grandma saying it too. It's like, you can't make it about people. It's not about the person, it's about the issue, right? So if something happens, it's not, oh, you did this. It's, okay, if we're going to be standing for this particular issue, then we need to stand for that issue. That's what we need to stand for. Or if this isn't right, then we need to talk about that. It doesn't matter, who was or wasn't involved, like whatever. If this is not okay and we can agree on that, then let's be hard on that issue.
For me, it's really embracing that whole concept of co-designing environments, and especially for persons that we serve and persons with lived experience, that is absolutely crucial. So when we look at talking about culture, in my experience, there's so many different interpretations of what culture is. And I think defining what culture is for your organization and your individual roles that serve the organization is absolutely integral to actually creating an environment which you want to see and realize.
What provides me with hope and with enthusiasm for the future is all of the young leaders that are coming up, that are, showing the way, that know that are coming with those attitudes already, that, so yes, we're trying to figure it out top down, but coming up to support that is this whole new generation of leaders. And in the parasport world, leaders who understand parasport, who are passionate, who have a better education than I have. Just recently on a staff meeting, I said something and then two of my staff were like, well, no, this, and this. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, tell me more, help me learn. And feeling like, I can't remember what it was. I think it was on our conference this week, Andrea, was about leadership and fellowship. And so not always feeling like leadership has to be you're out in front doing all the things, but fellowship, recognizing when, no matter who it is, no matter what role they have, with, getting rid of the sort of seniority and that kind of thing. There are some amazing young voices, many of whom that I have the privilege to work with, coming up and leading and not afraid to say what needs to be said. And it's such a privilege to be able to sort of step to the side and say, yeah, this person's like, this is coming.